This is the FlippingJunkie Podcast, episode 24. Welcome to the FlippingJunkie Podcast. My name is Danny Johnson, former software developer turned house flipper, flipping hundreds of houses. Each week, we bring you interviews, strategies, stories, and motivation to help you get started flipping houses and on your way to becoming your own boss and achieving financial freedom. Thanks for spending time with me today. Now let's get to it. Hey everybody, thanks a lot for tuning in again to the FlippingJunkie Podcast. We're nearing the end of the foundation part of the Flipping Houses training series on the podcast. If you haven't listened in before, we've been doing a weekly training on flipping houses, starting with the beginning, like a foundation, getting mindset correct, getting you set up by learning some of the mistakes that other people have made, that we've made in our business, and getting started and having the right mindset to be able to push through and make it past where 95% or more of people that want to get into real estate investing give up and quit. So if you haven't listened to the other episodes, the previous ones for the last probably 6 or 7 weeks, you want to go back and listen to those on iTunes and check out all that. It's very valuable information to get your foundation set up right, to get your house flipping business going and making it past where most people give up. And that's how you do that. And we've been really busy cranking up our house flipping business this year. We plan to do more than we've ever done this year, growing a great team to help do that. And I'm excited to share a lot of that information. You can find out some of the things that we're doing, see some pictures and stuff on the Instagram account. If you go to instagram.com/flippingjunkie, you can see some of that stuff. It's pretty cool. My wife Melissa's been adding some pictures and stuff up there. Sometimes I don't even know that she's putting the pictures there, so you might find some stuff that I didn't approve to put up there, but she caught me off guard and stuff. But anyway, it's pretty cool to check that stuff out. And, we've got some changes coming to some of the software. LeadPropeller.com is the real estate investor websites that we provide. We've been working a lot on, have some big ideas and changes in the works. And then the CRM system to keep track of leads and follow-ups for leads for real estate investors at reimobile.com. Some super exciting stuff that we've been planning and working on and we'll be rolling out over the coming months. So if you haven't seen those things, check those out, reimobile.com and leadpropeller.com. Now, today's guest is somebody that I've been working to get on the show, and finally got them to agree to a 30-minute slot in their busy time in their schedule to be on the show, and I'm very thankful for him being able to do that. I'm here today with Hal Elrod. He's on the podcast. He's not actually in my office, although that would be pretty cool. He's the #1 best-selling author of an awesome book called The Miracle Morning, The Not-So-Obvious Secret Guaranteed to Transform Your Life Before 8 a.m. It's also one of the highest-rated books on Amazon with over 900 5-star reviews. Now, I've seen other people had mentioned this book, and I got interested and ordered it off of Amazon and quickly read through it. It's a quick read, very interesting read. And, Hal's had an interesting life. He actually died at the age of 20. Yeah, believe it or not. He was hit head-on by a drunk driver at 70 miles per hour, broke 11 bones, died for 6 minutes, and spent 6 days in a coma, only to wake up and find out that he might not ever walk again. And miraculously, he did end up walking again. He actually ended up going on a 52-mile ultra marathon and became a Hall of Fame business achiever, international keynote speaker. He's been featured in Chicken Soup for the Soul book series, writes for Entrepreneur.com. He's really done a lot of amazing things. And you could say this is from hitting pretty much a rock bottom. I mean, how many people have said that they've actually died and come back and done all these things? So it's pretty amazing. He's got a really interesting story. And Robert Kiyosaki, author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, said the following about Hal. He said that Hal is a genius, and his book, The Miracle Morning, has been magical in his life. And he said, as my rich dad often said, I can always make another dollar, but I cannot make another day. If you want to maximize every day of your life, read The Miracle Morning. And I say that, and it sounds like an advertisement, and I don't mind that at all, because I will promote the heck out of the book, Miracle Morning, because it's an incredible book. And actually, after I read that, I've been doing The Miracle Morning every single morning. I think it's been almost 4 months now. And it really is true. It really, changes how you see everything, how you approach everything, and what you accomplish. And we'll get into the details of all of it. But I have actually been doing it for that long, and I might have missed 1 or 2 days here and there on a weekend or something. But otherwise, I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do my Miracle Morning, and I wouldn't give it up for the world. It's really made a big difference in our life because my wife Melissa also does Miracle Morning. All right, so let's get into the discussion with Hal. Hal, you there?
I am, Danny. Thanks for having me, man. This is going to be a good time.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. Thanks for being on the show. I know you're pretty busy.
My pleasure, man. I'm honored that you invited me on.
All right, great. So for everybody out there, I brought Hal on today to talk about how you out there, anybody, can change literally every part of your life by simply changing the way you wake up in the morning, even if you've never been a morning person. And, Hal, let's talk about your book, and specifically, let's talk about you being hit head on by the drunk driver, and how you were able to, what happened there, and then how you were able to bounce back from that and do all the incredible things that you've done. Yeah,
I mean, the head-on collision with the drunk driver, it's one of those things that no one ever imagined is going to actually happen to them. It's one of those, that happens to other people that you read about or you see on the news, and you feel sorry for them, and then you change the channel. But it's one of those things you never really imagine encountering yourself. And when I was 20 years old, I was one of the top salespeople for Cutco kitchen cutlery, Cutco kitchen knives. I broke a bunch of sales records at age 20. And as one of the top sales reps, I was asked to speak at most of the events that we had, and give, whether it was a motivational speech or teach how to get referrals or whatever it was. And this particular night, December 3rd, 1999, at 20 years old, I gave a speech at a conference. And that night, driving home in my my first new car, I had just bought 3 weeks prior a new Ford Mustang, very proud purchase with my own money. And driving home that night, a man that I had never met before got on the freeway going the wrong way, and he was doing 80 miles an hour, and I was traveling roughly 70 miles an hour, and I don't recall the headlights coming head on, right at my car, but they were. And again, it was 11:30 at night, so it was pretty late, pretty dark, and this full-size Chevy truck, much larger than my little Ford Mustang, comes barreling down the highway directly at me, and we collide head on for what combined 150 mile an hour head-on collision. The worst was yet to come, Danny. My car spun off the drunk driver, and the car behind me crashed in. Like, my car spun so it was perpendicular to the highway, and my driver's side door was a target for the car that had been following just a couple car lengths behind me.
Shoot. Yeah.
And crashed into my door at 70 miles an hour. And everybody listening, I always, to give you an idea, like, look over your left shoulder right now. Just take a second, look over your left shoulder, and imagine a car coming 70 miles an hour at you, at your car door, just crashes into you. And what you might imagine happening, the whole left side of the car was crushed into the left side of my body, and immediately I broke 11 bones, like instantaneously. My femur broke in half, 2 pieces. My pelvis broke in 3 places. I shattered my elbow, severed my radial nerve in my forearm, broke my arm, ruptured my spleen, punctured my lung. My ear was almost completely severed. The top of the ceiling buckled. It sliced a V in my head. My eye socket shattered. Essentially, I started losing a lot of blood. And an hour later, I had bled to death. And an hour later is when they finally were able to use the jaws of life, they being the rescue crews, and cut me out of the car. And when they did, I had lost so much blood that my heart stopped beating, and I was clinically dead for approximately 6 minutes. Brought back to life, rushed to the hospital, very, very in critical condition for about 6 days, in a coma for 6 days, and underwent emergency surgery. And 6 days later, I came out of this coma to the news that I suffered this, horrible car accident. I had no memory of it, and that I had permanent brain damage, and that I would probably never walk again. So, I don't care who you are. It's a pretty difficult reality to even, tough pill to swallow, tough reality to even comprehend. And like anything in life, I had to decide how I was going to respond to it.
Right. So how was that? I mean, we've been talking in this podcast over the last several weeks about sort of a series of foundation covering like mindset and motivation and all that kind of stuff for people getting into flipping houses, and how you're going to, life is not so much about what happens to you, but how you react to what happens to you. So I'd really love to hear what your thinking was like whenever you heard those words, and how long it took for you, and how you made that mental shift to say, hey, I'm not just going to lie down and let this ruin my life.
Yeah, it's, according to, now I to be very transparent, I don't remember coming out of the coma. I don't remember about a week of being awake and being out of the coma. I was talking, I was interacting, but because of my brain damage, I have very, very trouble with short-term memory, and especially at that time. But so what I'm going to share with you, I just kind of know the series of events after I woke up from the coma from my parents and friends that were there, and my sister and doctors, and just that have kind of recreated the whole story for me. And apparently, I was within a matter of hours. I at least 24 hours, I had accepted it, acknowledged I couldn't change it, and I was focusing on being grateful and being happy. And to the point where the doctors called my parents in, actually about a week after the accident, they called my parents in for a little sit down, and they said, physically, Hal has made it through the worst. He is stable, which at that point I had technically died, flatlined twice more in my coma. So, it was a very critical condition. And about a week after the coma, the doctors said, Hal's, physically, he's made it through the worst, and all signs are pointing to a recovery. They said, he may or may not ever walk again. So that is a reality you've got to deal with. And but they basically said, so physically he's made it through the worst, but mentally and emotionally, they said, we believe Hal is in denial. They said, they told my mom and dad that every time we see your son, every time we talk to Hal, he's always smiling and laughing and joking with us and making us laugh. And they said, that's not normal. Frankly, it's not normal for a 20-year-old to respond that way. So they said, we've seen this before. We believe that his reality is so painful, he can't accept it. So he's checked out of it. He's kind of delusional and just like everything's okay. And they said it's going to, at some point he has to face the emotions that he's bottling up. He's got to, he's probably deep down, he's scared, he's angry, he's depressed, he's sad. They said, we would really love it if you could talk with him and get him to admit how he is really feeling, so that we can help counsel him through the emotional pain, and that the healing can begin emotionally. And my parents were, of course, concerned, and my dad came in, an hour, probably minutes later. He came in my hospital room right after that, and the brain damage is still to this day. But my wife will vouch for that. So, no, what happened was my dad comes in, and he, and I don't know the conversation happened with the doctor, but he sits down, and I look over, and he says, Hal, can I talk to you for a second? And I was watching TV in my hospital bed, and keep in mind, my head is shaved, it's all bandaged, my ear is sewn on, like I'm in bad shape, and I'm just watching TV, and I look over, and my dad, who's asking if he can talk with me, he's, his eyes are red and watery, and I shut off the TV, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he's got some really bad news for me. I said, Dad, what's up? And he said, and he explained the situation with the doctors and their kind of concerns with my, being in denial. And he said, Hal, how are you really feeling? It's okay to be depressed or sad or angry. Of course, that's totally normal. It's to be expected, but it's important that you acknowledge the way you're really feeling and talk about it. So tell me, how are you really feeling deep down? And I stopped and I thought about it, because my dad was so concerned, and I thought, am I sad? Am I angry? Am I depressed? And I'm just not realizing it? And I got really truthful with myself, and I looked at my dad. I said, Dad, I thought you knew me better than that. I said, remember, I live my life by the 5-minute rule. And it's been 2 weeks. My 5 minutes are up. And he goes, remind me, what's the 5-minute rule again? I said, I learned this in my Cutco sales training. It's simply, it's okay to be negative when things go wrong, but not for more than 5 minutes. And I said, Dad, it's been 2 weeks. And I said, the 5-minute rule essentially says you get 5 minutes to be upset, complain, bitch, moan, cry, cuss, punch something, whatever you got to do when something goes wrong. But the 5-minute rule is simply the acknowledgement that there's no value in dwelling on something that is now out of your control, right? Unless you're Marty McFly with the DeLorean, like you can't go back in time and change it, right? So I
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
so the way that I see it, there's only one of two options here. Number one, the doctors are right and I'll never walk again. And I said, and if that's my reality, Dad, I promise you, I'll be the happiest person you've ever seen in a wheelchair. I've already played it out in my mind. If I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life, I'll be the happiest person you've ever seen in a wheelchair, the most grateful person you've ever seen in a wheelchair, because what else would I be? Miserable?
Right.
What value would that? Why? What's the point? If once a circumstance has happened, like the only choice you have is, like you said, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. I said, so number one, I'm in a wheelchair the rest of my life, but I'm happy. I said, so Dad, if that's the worst case scenario, you and Mom have nothing to worry about. Like, there's nothing to worry about. Second scenario, Dad, second option is I will walk again. And, and honestly, Danny, I didn't know if I would. I didn't know. It's not like I wasn't delusional, like I'm definitely going to walk again. I just told my dad, I'm committed. All of my energy is going into option number two. Like, I'm thinking about walking every day. I'm dreaming about it. I'm praying about it. I'm
That's
meditating on it. I'm visualizing it. But simultaneously, I have fully accepted if I never walk again. So it's this interesting dichotomy, like, right, where most people, if they really want something, they don't know how to not be radically disappointed if they don't get what they want, right?
Right.
Or if they deeply love someone, they don't know anything but to be distraught if they lose the thing they love. And I think that I know that there's this way to approach life where you expect the best, but you accept the rest. You accept all things you can't change. When they happen or even before they happen. You accept life before it happens with the acknowledgement that, look, negative emotions are self-created by our level of resistance to the things that we think are creating the emotional pain. Like, we think it's the thing. Like, oh, of course I'm upset. Look at what she did to me. Well, she did what she did. You're choosing to be upset. If you just accept it,
Right.
doesn't mean you're happy about it, but much more powerful and rooted than happiness is peace. You're at peace with the things you accept. And then when you're at peace, it's kind of like a clean emotional slate where you get to choose the emotions. If you're in traffic, for example, I love this analogy because everybody understands traffic. Most people, Danny, do you like traffic or not like traffic? You can be on.
Heck
Okay.
no. Yeah. Well, I mean, actually, I've learned to not hate it so much by listening to podcasts, things like that.
Yeah,
But
so most people don't like traffic. Whenever I speak to an audience and I go, raise your hand if you don't like traffic, all their hands go up, and I go, all right, here's the game changer, right? So here's the deal. Like, you're going to be, if you hit traffic, most people resist right there. Oh, no, come on, go faster, cars in front of me. Like, I don't know how well that works for people, but it doesn't work well for me, right? Like, oh, right, we resist it. And here's the thing. Here's the secret. This is a very profound realization that I had from a mentor years ago, but it goes along with nobody likes feeling negative emotions for the most part. And again, we think it's the thing. We think that we're frustrated because there's traffic, but it's that we're not willing to accept and be at peace with the traffic. And what I realize is, if I'm going to be stuck in traffic for 30 minutes and I'm going to be late anyway, why not enjoy every moment in that car? And it's a metaphor for life to me. When you accept the things that are out of your control, that you can't change, whether they are past, whether it's current circumstances that are out of your control, or it's a future circumstance that's on its way, once you accept it, you are at peace. And when you're at peace, you're in the driver's seat of your emotional state, and you get to choose. All right, like when I'm in traffic, I'm like, all right, I accept it. I can't change it. I'm at peace with it. Doesn't mean I'm happy there's traffic, but because I'm at peace, I have this clean emotional slate, and I'm like, how do I want to feel? I'm like, yeah, I want to turn on some music and just freaking have fun right now. Like, or I want to be grateful, or I want to be insightful, or whatever, right? You get to choose, but not when you are resisting your circumstances, creating emotional pain. So.
and it's funny because people say, oh, I'm so busy. There's no time for me to do all this other stuff because I'm so busy doing this, that, and the other thing. And I'm in my car for this hour in traffic, and it's like, you wouldn't feel so busy if you realize that maybe in that hour of traffic is like your relaxed time. Like, choose to be, like you said, switch the way you look at it. And it reminds me of the Jim Rohn quote. He's always talking about, don't wish for less problems, wish you were better.
Yeah, that's it.
Everybody's going to have problems. Everybody's going to have situations. Just learn to be better. And that's something that's not something people can flip a switch and immediately start doing, but that's something to work towards.
That's exactly it. And that's, I used to speak at high schools and colleges, and I had these little can't change it wristbands made where if someone bought my book, they would get a can't change it wristband. And those are the 3 words that, for me, I have literally the 5-minute rule is a very real thing. It's a great way to start this process because it gives you time to feel your emotions. You get to be pissed off or upset or whatever, right? Literally, when something goes wrong, you set your timer for 5 minutes. And you get 5 minutes to be upset. And then after 5 minutes, you take a deep breath and you say 3 really powerful words, which are can't change it. Acknowledging that whatever happened, I can't go back. I can't change it. It happened. It doesn't mean you can't change your future, right? Or do something now to change things moving forward. But you can't change what happened, whether it was 5 seconds ago, 5 minutes ago, or 5 years ago, or whatever. And so that is that process. And then what happens is, here's the interesting thing, and I'll wrap it up with this. Most people, when I teach this, they go, like, if I'm talking to an audience, I'll say, how many of you feel like 5 minutes is like you need 5 weeks? Like 5 minutes is not long enough to be upset. And everybody, most people raise their hand. And I go, yeah, I thought that too. And it feels that way at first. But here's what happens. At first, the timer goes off. You're like, oh, I still feel upset, right? But now you're conscious. And now you go, oh, okay, I can't change it. And you're on you're halfway, 1 foot in to acceptance, 1 foot over on resistance, and you're kind of like, I don't know, I'm like, okay, I'm accepting it, but so it doesn't feel natural. What happens though is after a few weeks of doing this, 5 minutes, believe it or not, will become too long. You'll set your timer for 5 minutes after you've done this a dozen times, and all of a sudden, the timer, you go, gosh damn it, I can't believe this happened. I'm so upset. I'm so frustrated, God. And then you pick up your phone and look at the timer, and you're like, oh, God, I still got another 4 minutes and 34 seconds, right? And you're like, oh, and then you just look again, you're like 3 minutes, you're like, why don't I just accept it now? Like, this is silly. Why would I put myself through this,
Right, and it's amazing. And when you think about what level of things can happen to you and how that still works if you've built it into a habit that you have, like what happened to you. I mean, how much worse could you really get, for something that bad to happen to you, and you still were able to quickly, from what they're telling you, doctors were telling you, and your dad coming in and talking to you about that. So that's really cool. It's like, it's something that becomes very powerful that can handle those sorts of things.
Well, yeah, and that's
to where you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh no,
so
go ahead.
And that's funny. So 2 things. My dad, that's what he said when I reminded him of the 5-minute rule, and that because I learned that in my sales training. He, and I said, Dad, remember I live by the 5-minute rule from Cutco, and and I, reminded him what it was, and he goes, Hal, but he goes, yeah, but that was taught you for much milder adversity. Like that was for rude customers or canceled orders, And I said, no, yeah, you're right, but the principle is universal, right? Mm-hmm. Whether you lose someone that you love, or you're in a horrific car accident, or your arm is cut off, once you can't change it, you get to choose whether you indulge in your emotional pain and create it and perpetuate it, or you accept what you can't change and you're at peace. Like, it doesn't matter how big or how small it is.
Yeah, it's amazing. So what was the inspiration behind writing The Miracle Morning?
Yeah, so that was my second book. My first book was called Taking Life Head On, right? Play on words, the head-on collision with the drunk driver, and that was 2006 was my first book. I was 25, I think, or 26 when it came out. And then The Miracle Morning came out 12/12/12. So December 12th, 2012, 6 years later. And the first book, obviously, the inspiration was, I was in this accident, and a friend, my good buddy John Berghoff, just kind of one day he was like, Hal, dude, why aren't you writing a book? Like, you need to share the story and the kind of the way you approached it. People can really benefit from that. And so both books were written out of a sense of responsibility, where I kind of went through some tough times and figured a couple things out, and that were so valuable. And then when I shared them with, clients or friends, like, they had a profound impact for those people. And then I went, maybe I should write a book. And The Miracle Morning was the same thing. I had no intention of ever writing another book after my first one, really. And in 2000, here's the quick story. So 2006, or 2005, greatest year of my life. I buy my first house. I double my income. I'm one of the top sales reps, like number 3 in my entire company. Out of 50,000 sales reps, I get in the best shape of my life. 5.7% body fat. I buy my dream car. I meet my wife. Write my first book. Everything's great. And then a couple years later, the U.S. economy crashes. 2007, I think, is when it kind of started. I lose over half my clients. I lose my house. I cancel my gym membership. I go from 5.7% body fat to 17% body fat. I get deeply depressed because I can't pay the bills. I don't know where. I'm scared. I'm a mess. I'm the worst I've ever been. And after 6 months of this, they're really getting worse and worse and worse, kind of a downward spiral, if you will, where nothing I'm trying is working to get myself out of it. Like, I'm reading books, I'm trying different things, and it just keeps getting worse. And finally, a conversation with that same friend, John Berghoff, who, it's amazing. I look back, like, so many turning points in my life have happened to talking to John. But I finally call him and I confess how bad it's gotten. Because, Danny, keep in mind, I didn't tell anybody about my circumstances. Like, I kind of suffered in silence because I was a success coach. So it kind of was an identity crisis to, reach out to people and go, hey, I'm failing miserably, so I need more coaching clients. Do you know anyone that needs a success coach who's failing miserably, right?
Yeah, I can only imagine.
So I didn't tell anybody. Like, I didn't tell anybody. My fiance knew or whatever. But so John, long story short, he encourages me to go for a run, and he says every day, Hal, run or jog or walk, so you put yourself in a peak physical, mental, and emotional state. He goes, every morning, start off with some exercise, and while you're on that run, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. While you're in that peak physical, mental, and emotional state, listen to some sort of self-help audio in whatever area of your life you need to improve. And so the next morning, I was desperate. I thought it was kind of elementary advice. I'm like, this isn't going to work, but okay, I'm desperate, whatever. The next morning, I hear a quote from Jim Rohn, who you mentioned earlier, and this is the quote that becomes the catalyst for turning my adversity around faster than I ever thought possible. And it literally is, I wish Jim were still alive so I could be like, dude, like, the miracle morning is you gave birth to this in a way, right? And so he said, your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development, because success is something you attract by the person you become. And in that moment, I stopped. And for anybody listening, ask yourself what I ask myself, or what I realize is, I'm not dedicating time every day to my personal development. Therefore, I'm not becoming the person that I need to be to create the success that I want. And my epiphany was, I'm going to go figure out what the world's most successful people do every day for personal development, and I'm going to start doing that. And I was looking for like one thing. But after an hour of searching online and Googling things like, personal development and what the world's most successful people do for personal development, and just different phrases, I had a list of 6 practices, and I could not narrow it down below that. Like, depending on which millionaire or billionaire or CEO or philanthropist you asked, one of these 6 came up. And I almost threw in the towel. What do they call that? Paralysis by analysis. I'm going, I don't know which one of these I should do. And then the real breakthrough, I went, wait a minute. What if I did all of these? Like, what if I did the 6 most powerful, proven personal development practices known to man, and I just did them 10 minutes each every day? And I got excited, and I woke up the next morning. I did 10 minutes of meditation, then 10 of affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and journaling, those 6 practices. And that was the morning my entire life changed, because even though my outer world was still a mess, right? My bank account was negative. I was $52,000 in credit card debt. I was in the worst shape of my life physically. Even though my outer world was a mess, internally, I saw that if I start every day like this, with this much, doing all 6 of these, this much clarity and energy and motivation, like the way I feel right now, I feel unstoppable. And yesterday I felt suicidal, right? Like, big difference. And then just the end of the story is the result, which is less than 2 months of doing what is now known as the Miracle Morning. It didn't have a name back then. Wasn't going to be a book, but I more than doubled my income. I went from being in the worst shape of my life physically to deciding I was going to run an ultra marathon, which I started training for within a matter of weeks. Completed 52 miles like 5 months later in one day. And I went from being deeply depressed and borderline suicidal to being totally fired up. Like that didn't even take 2 months. That was like day one. And because my life changed so rapidly and so profoundly, I started calling it my miracle morning. But again, it was just my thing. And then I taught it to my coaching clients, and they almost all of them went, Hal, I'm not a morning person, but I encouraged them to give it a shot for a week. And like nearly every single one goes, Hal, I did your little tips on waking up. Oh my gosh, it is like changing my life. And that was when I went, okay, I guess I got to write another book, and took 3 years, but now I'm very grateful to say it's one of the highest rated books on Amazon with like 1,300 5-star reviews, and just on and on. It's kind of become this worldwide movement that it's grown far beyond me. If I died today, knock on wood, the miracle morning, will I think it's got kind of a life of its own.
Oh, I think so too, man. I'm super glad that you did write the book, because it's really helped me. And, that whole realization, especially with that quote from Jim Rohn that you mentioned, where your level of success seldom exceeds your level of self-improvement. Was that it?
Personal development.
Personal development. So it all begins, it's all about you. And that's sort of, when you look at it in terms of, sort of like when people, I've heard it several times before, where they say, like, if you take all the wealth in the world and distribute it evenly between everybody, it doesn't take very long before it's all going to end up in the same hands that it was in before.
To
the same level.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, and I agree. It's like if you were to take a highly successful business person and take everything away and drop him in the middle of nowhere, it would only be a matter of time, because of who he is, that he would recreate his circumstances.
Absolutely. And what I love best about the miracle morning stuff is you start your day out. First, there's no excuse, right? Because you get up earlier. And so it's not that I don't have time. You get up a little bit earlier than you would normally, maybe an hour. I started to get up an hour earlier. So I used to get up at 6, and then became 5 o'clock to do miracle morning. And you really get in the mindset to where you tackle the day proactively. So you're proactive, like looking. I mean, we'll get into a little bit deeper into each of those steps that you talked about, the 6 things. But, you focus on what you want out of life and what you're working towards and your self-development. And so you're starting the day proactively, instead of getting up immediately reacting to everything, checking your phone, your email, and saying, oh, I got to respond to this, I got to do this today, I got to do that, and just putting out fires all day long and never really achieving anything that you set out to achieve.
Yeah. Well, I think one simple way to put it is, if you win the morning, you win the day. When you win, however you start the day, just sets the context, and it sets your mindset and the tone kind of for the rest of the day. So if you have a, unfocused, chaotic morning where you woke up late, you're rushing around, I call that a mediocre morning, right? So most people kind of start their day. Well, then that's the tempo and the momentum that you've created for the day, and it makes it that much harder to make it a great day. But you start the day proactively, and like you said, it's easier to win the day. So yeah.
Yeah, and I like the routine of it. So because one of the things that was like, it's so profound and simple, but profound because it's common knowledge maybe, but not common practice, where people typically would set goals or think about personal development, and it might be the span of them reading one book or something, and then it's over with. But when you set it up to be every single morning, just the power of that, instead of like, well, I'll look at my goals again at the end of the month, and then you just forget. It's like every single day you're starting out with that focus, and that's just like, I don't know, if you don't, until you practice it, you don't see how powerful it is, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I agree completely.
But let's get into a little bit more of what the 6 things are, and then why, or the benefit of each, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. So these 6 practices, they're none of them are new. I mean, they're timeless. But Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, he put it really well. He reached out to me and he said the miracle morning, and this is, I get giddy when I say this, but he reached out and he had read the miracle morning 3 times. He had read the book 3 times, and this is, he's personally sold 26 million copies of Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like, this is, he's been around for decades, but he had read the book 3 times. He does it every day. It changed his life and improved his marriage, he said. And But the way that he said it is, he said before the miracle morning, every successful person swore by at least one of the 6 practices, which are known as the savers, by the way. If you're taking notes, these are the savers, SAVERS, and savers is the acronym for the 6 practices. But he said every successful person did at least one of the savers, and they swore by him. But he said no one, to his knowledge, was doing all 6, which is pretty profound to think about. But he said no one was doing all 6, and now he does all 6, as part of his miracle morning every day. So this, I'll run through these relatively quick, and we can wrap up our time today. But the first S is for silence, right? And that is meditation and or prayer. So rather than starting your day, by snoozing until the last possible minute and then kind of rushing out the door, it's starting your day. Your miracle morning begins with peaceful, purposeful silence. It allows you to get centered. And if you do any research, the benefits of meditation are there are over 1,400 studies that have proven the profound physical, mental, and emotional benefits of meditating every day. So that's the start, silence. The A is for affirmations. And affirmations, it's not the way they've been taught for decades, where either the whole Stuart Smalley, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. Or the way affirmations have been taught, and they're still taught today by some people that I respect their teachings, but this in general I'm not a big fan of. And they teach you to either affirm something that is not true in the hopes that you will eventually kind of trick yourself into believing it's true. So for example, if you want to be a millionaire, you say, they call it I am statements. I am a millionaire. I am a millionaire. Well, if you're not a millionaire, your subconscious, even your conscious mind goes, no, you're not. So you're fighting the truth, right? And the truth will set you free. Lying is never an optimum strategy. So the idea that saying I'm a millionaire when you're not is that's just not going to be the optimum approach, because you're fighting with reality. And then the second way that affirmations are taught is to use this flowery kind of passive language that makes you feel good in the moment, such as money flows to me effortlessly and in abundance. No, it doesn't. That's not how money works, right? Like, typically you've got to add value to the world or your employer or the marketplace before money is going to flow to you. So the way that I teach affirmations in the Miracle Morning, and I won't go this in depth on all the savers, but I think this is a great example of how all of the savers, if there's anything that I'm good at, I'm not the smartest guy. So I'm good at really simplifying things so that they're actionable and results oriented for people. So the way that I teach affirmations in the book is not to lie to yourself with these I am statements, and not to affirm some sort of fantasy, but to affirm your goals, right? Here's what I'm committed to achieving this year. So goal number 1 is this. And then why is that important? I'm committed to this because it's going to help my family, or it's going to why is that so important to you? And then the third component is, what specifically must you commit to doing, or are you committed to doing, and when, and for what duration? So you're you're affirming that here's what I want, here's why I want it, and so therefore I will do blank on these days of the week from this time to this time, no matter what. So now you're not affirming some lie or some fantasy. You're affirming the reality of what you want, why you want it, and most importantly, what specific activities or actions you will take and when you will take them. So you're programming your conscious and subconscious mind and your behaviors to be in alignment with reality, of what you're going to do to achieve the things that you want. So that's an example of all the savers being kind of, from meditation to visualization. They're all very practical and results oriented like that. The V is for visualization. And in the book, just the short of it is, I teach you not just to visualize some, the dream at the end of the tunnel, but visualize the activity you have to take today, lacing up your running shoes. Feel how to feel the feelings and attach feeling to your visualization, so that while you're visualizing lacing up your running shoes, because maybe you hate running, but you're training for a marathon or you want to lose weight, feel the feelings that you would feel if it were optimum and you were enjoying that activity that day, so that when that activity rolls around and it's time to do it, you've already used visualization to pre-create an emotional experience that's compelling and enticing, so that you actually are more likely to follow through, and it makes it a lot easier for you to do so.
Right. So see yourself how you want to be. doing
the action and on a today method, not 2 years from now I visualize a great future. Like that's fine, but don't end it there. You got to support that visualization with the daily activities. The E is for exercise, and I'm not saying you can't. If you like to go to the gym in the afternoon, that's great. But the benefits of morning exercise are proven to increase your energy and improve your mental thinking, all of that. And then the R is for reading. So reading self-help books, and I really believe that we're all just really one book away from learning anything that gaining the knowledge that we need to improve any area of our life. And last but not least is scribing, and scribing is it's a fancy word, if you will, for writing, but that is the magic that happens when you put pen to paper. You gain a heightened level of clarity, and that they say clarity is power, and it is, because if you don't have clarity, you have no power. You don't know what to do or why you're doing it or when to do it, right? And when you scribe, when you journal, you get clarity that improves your ability to take action and follow through. So those are the savers, and again, any one of those is a game changer. When you combine all of them, it becomes the miracle morning, and that's where the results are so powerful.
Right, and I think journaling, the scribing part of it, at first I was like, well, I'll do the other ones, but that one I probably won't. But as soon as I started doing it, I was like, wow, this is amazing, because it makes you stop and reflect and see if you're actually, making those improvements in your life, instead of saying, oh yeah, I should do that, and then you just don't do anything. Reflecting on how you handle the day before and everything, that's when I do it, when I journal. I think it's very powerful. But so some people think, well, what do you so every morning you're going to do this, right? But what about weekends? I mean, do you recommend every single day, including weekends? What do you do?
Yes, most people, and we have our Miracle Morning Facebook group. I would invite everybody to come join the Miracle Morning community. And again, the word community is important, because there's Miracle Morning fan pages, and there's all sorts of Miracle Morning groups other people have started in their local areas or whatever. But the Miracle Morning community is the official Miracle Morning space, where there's 35,000 people there from 38 countries. Wow. Yeah, it grows by like 100 to 200 a day. But this question has been asked in their group, and it's almost always unanimous that most people started with the weekends off. And what would happen is they wake up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, do the Miracle Morning. They feel unstoppable, on fire, motivated, excited. They feel accomplished. Then they sleep in Saturday, and they wake up and they're like, why would I do that? Like, I just missed out on the best part of my day, So most people go from 5 days a week to 6 days a week to 7 days a week. I think everybody to each their own. If somebody wants to take the weekends off, it's great. If they want to just do Miracle Morning Monday, Wednesday, Friday, it's still going to, be a pretty powerful, transformational, part of their life either way.
Yeah, and I feel like my day is just better when I do it. So I even do it Saturday and Sundays, but maybe a little bit briefer on the weekends, but I still do it just because I do. The whole day is better that way. But I know we need to wrap this up pretty quick. Do you mind if I ask you real quick, what are the 3 books that you're reading right now?
Yes, absolutely. And I happen to be reading 3, maybe even 4. But so the 3 books I'm reading right now, the first is Will It Fly? How to Test Your Next Business Idea So You Don't Waste Your Time and Money. And really great book for anyone who is an entrepreneur, or if you've ever thought of being an entrepreneur. It's by Pat Flynn, and it's just a phenomenal. I've never really seen a book that was like this and covered this topic, which is most people just come with an idea, think it's a great idea, they invest a bunch of time, money, and energy into putting it out there in the world, and then they find out if it was a good idea or not, right? And this book teaches you how to systematically validate your ideas before you put a lot of time and energy into making them a reality. Another one I'm reading is called Story Selling by Nick Nanton, which is just a great book on how to use the power of story to influence or sell your stuff. Just a chat. I just started reading that one this morning. And and Nick Nanton, by the way, just came out with a new movie, Visioneer. Go to visioneermovie.com, VISIONEER, visioneermovie.com. You can watch, actually, when this comes out, you probably have to pay for it. Right now it's free, but it's worth it. It's the documentary on Peter Diamandis, founder of X Prize, and really fascinating.
Oh wow, yeah, I'm gonna check.
Yeah. You as of live right now, you can still get it for free. Visioneermovie.com, and then the last one I'm reading is called The Last Safe Investment. And it's by Brian Franklin and Michael Ellsberg. But that one, Michael just sent me, I think he wants me to review it or something, but yeah, so far so good. I'm kind of in the first couple chapters of all of those.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that. And let me see, I usually ask, what you're doing right now that's helping you the most in your business. Do you have a quick answer for that?
It's finding strategic partners. I think that's been the biggest thing, is leveraging other people. That's the hardest thing as an entrepreneur, as a solopreneur. It's so hard to let go of the activities that you've spent time learning and doing, and you feel like it took you so long to learn them, or nobody's going to do them the way you do them, or what, all these different reasons.
Right.
And you just have to jump and the net will appear, kind of thing, where, like I just brought on, she's now my chief of staff. She started as an intern, became my assistant. And, and instead of me trying to figure out and teach her stuff, I often just go, hey, figure this out, and it's amazing how she comes back and she does it better than I'm like, wow, that's freaking awesome. Thank you. Like, would you teach me now, Whereas in the past, I thought I had to go learn it so that then I could teach someone, So that's been really valuable, is leveraging people in that regard, and then also leveraging partnerships where I partnered with actually John Berghoff, the gentleman I mentioned earlier, my best buddy.
Mm-hmm.
We run live events together now. I partnered with a gal named Honore Corder. She's my book series partner for the Miracle Morning book series. We have the Miracle Morning for real estate agents, for salespeople, for network marketers, and those are out now. The journal's out now, so there's a few different Miracle Morning books in the series. But yeah, that's been it, is leveraging other people, both through, like assistant type roles or staff or team roles, and then also partner roles.
Great. No, thank you very much. And one last thing real quick too is, and this will be the last, I think I've said the last thing for the last 5 minutes, but this ought to be like, so whenever coming up with affirmations, right? So some people struggle with that. And whenever I was reading, I sort of struggled with it as well. But you do provide sort of an example of what you had for affirmations. And would that be something that you'd be willing to share with us, that I could put on the show notes page or something for people to take a look at?
Yeah, you can just put the link. If you go to, normally it's, this is for people that are reading the Miracle Morning. This is one of the many bonuses in the book, but it's the website anybody can go to. It's tmmbook.com. So TMM as in the Miracle Morning. book.com, tmmbook.com, and you'll get the bunch of sample affirmations, including my own personal affirmations from 2012, as well as a 30-day. There's just a bunch of stuff that you'll get at the website.
Great. And is there a place where other people can find you besides that? I guess you mentioned the Facebook group. What's the, is that just facebook.com/Miracle Morning?
Yeah, no, it's, so the direct URL that you can put in the show notes is mytmmcommunity.com. So that'll help you get through all the different Facebook groups that are Miracle Morning related that people have started. But yeah, it's mytmmcommunity.com. And then and my website is my name, halelrod.com, and that's where you can find out about all things related to my speaking or coaching or live events, that sort of thing.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks again, Hal, for being on the show and taking the time to share with my audience and all the Flipping Junkie listeners out there for the podcast.
Danny, man, again, a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me, and everybody that tuned in, thanks for listening, and I hope to see you in the Miracle Morning community.
Awesome. Well, take care. All right, great episode. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did in interviewing Hal. He's a great guy with great information and a wonderful idea with Miracle Morning and an amazing story. But it really will change your life. I do highly recommend that you get the book and follow it. And you can find information that we talked about from the show on the show notes page at flippingjunkie.com/24. flippingjunkie.com/24. And I'll have all the links and everything in the books that were talked about, as well as what we talked about with what the savers were, with silence, affirmations, visions, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. And be sure to subscribe to the Flipping Junkie podcast on iTunes and leave a rating and review if you're enjoying the podcast, because it really helps to promote it and to help us to get more guests on the show and do all those things that we're doing. So thanks for following along, and we're continuing this series of Flipping House's training from foundation to learning how to talk to sellers, do marketing to get leads, analyze the deals, buy them, fix them up, sell them, all that kind of stuff. So definitely want to subscribe and return each week to listen in. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.